Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to a thing I'm going to try with this live stream, which is showing you what I would normally prefer to do in person, but digitally through the live stream. And I can't really share my screen either, so bear with me for this little workshop. I'm wearing a hat because I'm cold and my hair's greasy, so there's that, changing the look today. Yeah, thanks for joining in. If you are new to our live streams or an old fan, I don't say old, but someone who enjoys these. Steph does like the craft night and the other live streams and workshops on the Guelph Tool Library page, Instagram live streams, IGTV. We both do this kind of volunteer style, so one thing that would really help for these free workshops is if you guys would share it with somebody you think would like it, leave a comment, or just tell somebody about it. I'm not saying go post it on your story or anything like that, but maybe you've got somebody who might be interested that you've come across that maybe would want to also see these videos, and that helps us out because that tells us what our engagement actually is. And I think we offer all of these for free to you guys, so I think more people would really like that. So if you agree, then maybe this week before next week, when we start doing like seed starting and more exciting stuff, share it with somebody that you know. So today the theme is going to be how to plan out a garden using free tools that anyone has access to. You don't need to be a graphic designer, you don't need to be a landscape architect. You can be just a person who wants a little bit heads up on how to do like a garden map, a plan, somewhere to start, something you could give someone to work on, or something to help you keep track of the plants that you already own. I know that I have a pretty extensive hosta collection in my shade garden areas, and so I usually like to make at least a rudimentary map of my garden so I know which plants are where, which ones do I have. Even though I know what my garden looks like pretty well, it's just nice to have some data on that if you're someone who's like that too. So what you're going to need today, it does work. You can do it through your phone. However, if you have a desktop or a laptop, or maybe even an iPad, this will go much smoother for you. And I'm going to switch the camera over to my computer for a bit, but I'll just kind of preface what we're going to do and what you might need. So I recommend some square paper. If you don't have any square paper and you don't want to buy a whole bunch, you can get it printed online. Just look up free square paper print. You can make the squares whatever size you want that way. If you have a smaller garden or a larger garden, this is the standard square paper for doing math, little designs. I've always loved this since I was a kid. I would steal it from my dad's office to make designs of things and pixel art because it has these perfect squares. Each square I think is like 0.5 millimeter. And bonus is if you have a ruler, so you can kind of figure that out, and that'll help you do things a little bit quicker. You can also just count the squares. I really like doing little art projects, things like that. So I kind of enjoy doing this mapping. So I have a ruler, a pencil, not a pen, and some kind of eraser. Maybe you have a combo of those that go together. I've just got kind of a simple art pencil and an eraser for drawing our initial design. This is a design. I'm going to use the Grow Garden, which is a community garden located in Martin. Was part of Transition Guelph. It's a group of people who grow their own food, have membership plots, and then we donate all the food to local food pantries. And it's just a large community garden, which I happen to be managing that space. So I will use that as the example today. A little bit different than a residential thing. So you might want to also maybe not do your map while you listen to this, but, take some little notes so that when you apply it to whatever space that you want to map out, you'll remember some of these little tips, because I think I'm just going to go with on the fly and I might forget myself what exactly I'm talking about per usual. I just like to go. It's nice to have an audience so I can kind of direct my thoughts, but I'm just kind of, getting all this information out for you and remembering things on the fly. So I'm going to start with my square paper, and I've got my pencil and eraser ready to go. And I'm going to just orientate this paper the way that I want to view the garden. So if you have more of a elongated lot, maybe you're going to turn this, portrait style. If you have more of a square, maybe landscape, whatever works for you, do it that way. I like looking at it landscape style because this particular garden is more of a rectangle that is shaped this way. So bear with me here. I'm going to switch the camera around to my computer, and then hopefully you can kind of see. I will point at the screen to kind of show what I'm doing. Hopefully that's like close enough. Let's get even closer. No, that's probably as good as we're going to get. That's okay. So today we're looking at the grow garden. It's not going to be a long workshop either because I know this is like not ideal. But yeah, this is the grow garden. There's the kind of Google picture that you see, like street view style of what it looks like. And then of course, when you click on Google, you land here. You can see my mouse and follow along with this video. Here's the grow garden. Obviously, when it's in 2D like this, there isn't a lot of detail. Maybe I'm going to zoom in. That'll help a little bit. So yeah, I can actually hold this. Oh no, focus. Okay. So yeah, not a lot of detail. And of course the camera's struggling to focus on that because it's all white. So that's not going to be for long. You're going to go here and you're going to click satellite. So put in whatever address you want to do, whether it's your house or, grandma's house or whatever it might be. And we're going to zoom in. This is a very old image of the grow garden because I'll show you in a minute what it actually looks like as of last summer. Or I think the imagery, as we zoom in, you can kind of see that there's quite a jump in terms of quality. Like here, it's a little bit pixelated, but as I zoom in, we actually get some pretty decent quality. When you're in this version, you cannot flip the image. So I don't want to draw it from this angle, but I'm going to flip it in a minute. The grow garden started as this kind of square. We still have this structure in place, so that's a good point of reference. So for you, the point of reference might actually be the shape of your home if you're going to do the design like around whatever it is. So we can imagine this is a square house. I have to kind of do the outline of the house and the gardens to get a full picture. Or you can do more specifically, getting close and do, just your front garden. So then what you're going to do is you're going to come over here to these buttons on this side, and you're going to see this globe. Click that, and now we're on like the 3D globe view. And if we look back at the garden now, I'm actually going to zoom out a little bit. We have a lot more detail, a lot more recent activity going on, and looks like we've really inhabited the place and taken over. You can see our pretty good circle of a maze. The time of year this was taken obviously didn't look too maze-like, but if we zoom in, we actually get really good detail. You can kind of see even the clumps of plants that are in there. And as we come over here, we have a building that wasn't previously visible, and we can zoom in. It's actually kind of 3D. I'm going to go over to the tools right here and flip our map like so. So it's a little bit easier to orientate everything. Zoom out like that. Perfect. So I kind of want to look at it as this would be the bottom of the page here, down here, and then the upper part of the paper will be like that. And then we still can see this kind of original square that we had. If I flip out of this, it goes right back to where we were, and I might have to do it again, but yeah, so you're just going to click that 3D globe button on and off. We want it on, and you want to be in 3D, and you want to see this so that you can actually turn your map sideways and see what you're doing. I'm going to flip one more time. It's the neighbor's house. But yeah, there's the grow garden. So there's that. That's how you're going to get a free 3D over-the-top map image of whatever you're working with. For most residential areas, you're going to have a pretty up-to-date map overhead from Google of your place. And if you don't, remember to click that 3D button because you might actually have even better quality going on. And it'll include little buildings and things like that. You can actually see, we really zoom in here, you can really see what we've been up to over the years and what we've added in the different plots. My guess is this is early spring because these raised beds are completely empty and just dark. We have asparagus in this bed, and I can see a bit of a shadow. So my guess is that they haven't even been cleaned up for the spring. These blue pieces of ground is not water or ice or anything like that. It's actually an old pool liner that I use to suppress weeds, kill certain areas of weeds. So we have those in a couple spots, kind of doing some suppression. And by the end of last season, we actually cleaned up this entire area. So I'm really guessing this is probably spring 2020, which is really cool. There's actually, you can see some cardboard here that someone has down. One of our Grow Garden members have really nice square plots up in this. I can totally tell that's what that is. We've got a big shadow from our structure here, which is a little bit hard to tell what's going on with that. We have an orchard area, which, yeah, looked like this in early spring. Does not look like this anymore, but we had some mulch spread out. You can kind of see that activity there. It's kind of neat. So once you have your map, look, it's pretty cool. Like someone's got little, spots right there that they can garden. But I'm going to zoom out just a little bit and show you another really cool trick over in the maze, for example. So when I want to start doing my map, you could, of course, use this image. You can take a screenshot, but if you don't know how to do that and you still want to do by hand on some paper, you can right click in this feature and you will get this little menu. And what you want to do is click measure distance, and you're going to have this little dot. I'm going to zoom in once again. We're going to go nice and close. And then what you're going to do is move that dot. Once you move it, you're primed to do another one. So I'm going to do a click over here, and that gives us the distance in meters of this circle, for example. Now, the way that this works is every extra time that you click, it adds on to the total distance. So what you don't want to do that, because you ultimately just end up with a perimeter and you're going to have to do the math to reverse that. So measure one side at a time, each side at a time. And then what you can do, zoom out just a little bit, is click clear measurement and it goes away. So that's what I do when I'm just doing kind of a basic assessment. If I don't have any kind of actual measurements, if I don't have plans already for a space, that is what I do. So for the Grow Garden, it's not a perfect square, but I'll show you in a second. Right click, measure distance. I'm going to move that to this far corner, or maybe kind of right there, and put it all the way here to kind of get my total space. So 23.99 meters. And what I would then do, if we zoom out all the way here and we come back to my paper, is if I look on this ruler, if every single square was a meter, I actually don't have enough room. So I'm going to have to do a little bit of math to kind of fit it on here. It's a very large space, probably not like most residential yards, but essentially I'd have to maybe cut that number down in half. So maybe about 15 and a half we'll kind of do to make our garden here. Let's see if I can do there to there. I did 2 dots on the same line to kind of represent this. Let's see if I can like hold the tripod and draw at the same time. I'm not going to go into super detail. Oh dear. Yeah, that's hard. Ugh, I did it. Okay, so first line. Then I'm going to go back into the computer. Zoom in here. Doesn't want to zoom in. All right. I'm going to right click, clear measurement. And then I'm going to move the map, kind of remembering roughly where I had. It's always good to have a point of reference, whether that's like a certain tree or piece of fence or a large rock that can be seen in this image. I'm going to right click again, measure distance, move this little guy, did we go in here? I guess we kind of went there. And then I'm going to come all the way up to the end of the garden, kind of perimeter, which is parallel to the other side, which is about here. 24. So again, that's going to be way too many squares for my paper, but I'm going to reduce that in half. So let's go with, what can we actually fit? Like 12, actually 12 and a half up. And I'm going to call that the square that the shape actually is, because I do know it's a square and we try to keep to that style. So 12 and a half brings us to about there, up that line. This ruler's too long for the paper. Sorry guys, this is very improvised. I wish I had like a overhead projector that I could do this for, and like in a room. I didn't realize how old school I am until, oh my gosh. Yeah, okay, I can't do it. Holding the tripod at the same time. So look at the map and I'll come back to you in a second with this line. Oh my goodness. If you guys have any questions, I'm like rattling everything by erasing. Any questions about this technique, be sure to leave a comment and I will answer any questions. I just know that this is a free way to do it, and it's something to start off with, especially if you're looking to get quotes from anyone on designs, etc., or if you want to follow a design that you have in your mind, or you want to see if something will fit and how that works. So yeah, it's I don't know, something I've always kind of played around with. If there was something better, I would recommend it. I mean, boots on the ground, doing the measurements, that's always great to verify. But in this particular instance, I don't need, super exact measurements, because it's just kind of a generalized map design we need to kind of figure out where everything fits, at least at the Grow Garden. I like to keep record of who is where and what is where, etc. So yeah, and then I'm going to cancel that measurement again. So we're at a blank slate. Yeah, I'm going to move this whole map. And then I'm not going to include the maze in this particular design, but in the past, I'm going to put it up in front of the screen. It's going to be kind of weird. I've done a design kind of like this, using this technique, where basically I've done the measurement on this side. I know that this is this long. We have raspberries here. So I've kind of made, I did this digitally in a very similar way. What you can do is do it manually and then do a scan, or a scan would be best to upload your image. And then you can actually overlay digital references if you want it to look really sharp and clean. So this is kind of what last year's garden looked like, and this just kind of helped us figure out like what's going on where, and it's an easy way to tell volunteers like, oh hey, this area that needs to be cleaned is perennials. And I even found online like a free image that represents plants. For example, we had a picnic table here. So people can definitely refer themselves. Not everyone can just be told where things are and automatically understand. This area of the garden gets kind of complicated because we have different ownership and responsibilities for people and different things going on. We have added quite a bit since this map, so I definitely need to upgrade it. Things like this where, if you're following my pencil along, this is a new thing we wanted to do. We wanted to add that this year, which we ended up doing. So, we have plans on here. We have things that exist, things that don't exist, things that we're thinking about. There's the rabbit sneezing, of course. And then I have a plot in this garden, and I like to kind of pre-plan out what's going in there. Zucchini looks like, beans, can't even read my lettuce right here, but lots of flowers, greens. I love growing a lot of basil, so just planning out my plot, how things are orientated around the garden is really important. Now, one thing that isn't really demonstrated well on this map is where the sun is and how that works, because in this garden in particular, it's full sun. But once you have your house, like this, for example, is our pavilion. And you can even see in the Google image if we zoom in all the way here, I don't know why it's a little bit, you can actually see that this area is completely shaded. So it's something to take note of. I'll move this a little bit. But this area is completely shaded, so just keeping that in mind when we decide to put certain plants around this pavilion, knowing that it casts a shadow on a certain side at a certain time of day. The great thing also about Google Maps is you can refer to the compass at any time. And so when you're doing your actual drawing, you can look at that compass orientation and make note of that as well. So as you know, the sun sets in the west, and therefore, you know, the sun is facing that certain overhead position all day long. So understanding your compass orientation is really important. In this garden, we get a lot of wind coming from this direction, which is also kind of west. So it's something to keep note of. If you have a home, again, you're going to want to draw the outline of your house and then create some kind of shade symbol or pattern to determine where your more shaded areas are. Some houses have corners where it's a complete dead zone and you can't really grow plants because it's shaded by either your neighbors, your own home is quite cold and dark, so not many plants do well. And if you're looking for the perfect spot to put your raised bed, for example, you want full sun or somewhere that's getting at least 6 to 7 hours of at least bright full sunlight a day, and maybe some afternoon shade. So yeah, that's how you use Google Maps. I've kind of created a start, but of course you can get really close into detail and figure out exactly how much distance is in between things and the shape. You can, of course, again, measure the distance. The dot's pretty much where I want it, but I can put it in the corner of this raised bed, put it in the other corner, and that's giving me, it's actually showing at the bottom here, a full distance of 3.46 meters, which I can then, using the same scale I was doing in the map, add that to my paper map. And so what you can also do, which is kind of fun, I'm going to zoom out and come back to this paper design. What you can do is once you have your map done on this paper, use another sheet or printed sheet of square paper, and you can actually create little raised beds. For example, let's say we did one that was just small like this. So this represents 2 meters. This is quite a big raised bed. It's not very good on the fly, but you know, it'll do. But you can basically create some squares like this, cut them out, and then manipulate them around your map. This is what I really like sometimes. I mean, you can do that digitally as well. But if you're like a hands-on person and a visual person, it's kind of nice. You kind of make like the scale of the raised beds you want to add. Maybe there's a structure you want to add. You can use a different piece of paper, get that scale down, cut this guy out, place it on the map, and then move it around, add multiple of them, see where you can fit them. What would it look like if you did a curve in the corner? Is that actually very efficient? Things like that. You can kind of see how many you can fit in a space, and, you know, and considering pathways and things like that. So this is actually quite large. I think realistically on this map, because I said it was a half, so one of these is like 2 meters basically on this particular map. So I got to be careful not to make them so big, but you know, we've got a lot of room to fill in there. And I think it'd be a little bit tedious if I started doing this whole map. It's something that I have to do, so I'll definitely be checking back in if anyone has questions about this process, but it's just something that I try. Once you have that measurement, again, we can, if I do it up here, clear the measurement, then it's gone. And then of course, if I want to see the spacing in between, if I click right on that corner, it should come up, measure distance. Nope, hold on. Okay, there we go. I can put that on the corner, get my distance right there, 0 points. So it's about 1 meter, which is half of one of my squares on on my paper. So I know that these are 1 square by 1 square by 1 square, and I can actually insert this entire design. Now this is the distance I kind of need. This would be the edge of the paper. If my dot was down here going upwards, I don't know if that's easier to show, but if I did my corner of my map right here, going up this way, going out that way, I need to find out what the distance is from here and here. So it takes a little bit of time, but you know, you just, again, clear the measurements and start again. So measure distance, I got my dot. If this is the corner, I can go right across from it, so it's a little bit easier. I kind of skipped over this area. I'll probably expand the real map in a bit. And then I'm gonna click right here and discover that distance. And that's telling me 3.6 meters, which means I would be about 2.5 squares from the edge. And I can start to place, once I place this area of raised beds, it's probably the easiest on this map in terms of orientation, and I find out where this structure is, then I can just start filling in, checking distances using Google Maps, and you know, placing in the barriers of the different plots. Doing that in the past, if we zoom out, that is what I did to kind of discover where people are placed. So I'm trying to use like the mouse, but it's not working because it's a real drawing. So here, these people have a large plot. I found out where that was in orientation to this raised bed grouping we have at the bottom, which was easy to map out as well. And I can then just say, okay, that's so-and-so's plot, here's my plot, here's another person's plot, here's another person's plot, and what it looks like, and boom, things start to really fill in. Of course, I went in after. If you don't do this digitally, you can go in after with a pen or like a small Sharpie, and that would allow you to come back in with like some colored markers or colored pencils and start doing some color coding, things like that, to kind of differentiate what's going on your map. Of course, I like to use little symbols that are pretty universal. So here we have 2 rain barrels, and it says rain barrel system, and then I've got some plants either side, but I've got some blue and then some raindrop symbols that represent those raised bed, and I have them in a couple different locations. So right here we have a rain barrel. I blanked on that, but yeah, same color. I could have added the little drop. Up here we have our rainwater collection, water station area, which are 2 large IBC totes that collect rainwater from the workshop pavilion or shelter, what have you. They are located here. That kind of helps orientate people. Obviously that is a table, looks like a picnic bench, is a picnic bench. And then I have I try to put very little notes because it is a little bit tricky to read, especially when there's a lot of detail going on. Right here we have some benches that I kind of rudimentarily drew. You can tell it's a bench, just some ideas of where they should go. You know, this is kind of the barrier of where our orchard begins, so that was included kind of roughly. It's up to you how much detail you actually want to fill, but that is kind of the general gist of how I do that using Google Maps, and how you can do that and kind of start designing the flow. This is a quick one today because I actually have a really sore eye from looking too much at the computer, and I'm supposed to be taking a break. But yeah, I'd love to see what you guys come up with if you use Google Maps to kind of help you make your garden map this year. You can always include like your deck structure, your shed, things like that are really important to include on your design. Taking notes about the map orientation. So is it, you know, which end is north, which is south, which way is this facing? You know, all those little details are really important that I like to include. I wish I had a bit more I could do a bit more like while I do this, but it is somewhat tedious, and I'd love to share in that again. And I think to close off this particular workshop, I'm gonna see if I can walk around this side of the table and show you the microgreens that were started last week. I'll walk over my rabbit cage. It's pretty exciting. I've got so much stuff under this one light because I haven't hooked up the other ones. I need longer cables. But these are the microgreens that we started last week. They are awesomely tall. They need a little bit more water. The middle is a little shorter than the outsides. This side's getting a lot of light. But they look absolutely great. And I think probably be ready in the next 2 or 3 days. They're not going to get much bigger than this. You can see that everybody has at least, their first set of leaves. I would prefer another set of leaves, but we may not get that, which is awesome. There's still some water in here. We also started some lettuce seeds, and I did 3 little holes in the pot where I planted the actual seeds, and they're all coming up, and it looks great. I'm going to wait for them to get a little bit bigger, and then I will transplant them out of here into larger containers. This is just like a nursery bed for now. You can even see that one has some kind of speckles. We've got some red potentially coming up. They're all going to be this color to kind of start, but then we're going to get some individual characteristics coming after that. Different, who knows what the textures and things will be. I'm excited to see how that turns out, but that's how it's going under there. The basil is really slow to germinate, so I ended up transferring it. I had it as the sprouts, but I ended up transferring it. Let's see if I can get it down here. I ended up transferring it to this, and you can kind of see they're just starting to pop. They got like this goo all over them. It's very weird. I've never experienced this before, but gardening's an experiment, so sometimes it happens, but they're just starting to sprout, which is a good sign. I was kind of worried that there were maybe something wrong with them, but they're gonna just stay in a warm place, kind of out of the direct sunlight, and those will come back up. So that's what's going on for now. Let me know how you make out with your map using these tips. If you have any other things you want to learn about, I've done it for many different gardens, just doing it by hand. Sometimes a little bit easier for clients to understand with like the colors and the notes and everything, and it's a good way to kind of, once you have that base map, you can also print it many, many times and say, hey, everyone in the family, what's your idea? Give it to your kids, see what they come up with in terms of a 2D over top head design for the garden. Sometimes I'll do that and make many different iterations, move the actual little raised beds around, see what fits. There's another one where I've tried to fit in different greens in kind of a very narrow garden. We've got the house there. The other side is very shaded, so I just kind of avoided that whole side, and we're focusing for the client on this side. So yeah, very important to make notes about what the keys mean in your map and things like that, but that is the workshop for today. So don't forget that every Wednesday at 3 p.m. I will be doing these workshops. Next week I'm going to do some seed starting because I think we're ready, and then unveil a bunch of new workshops coming out for the end of February, into March, and then April. So we're almost there. We're almost out of the winter, and I'm really excited for stuff to get started again. And I think sometimes people say, it's really hard for gardeners in this part of the world because of the winter. But to be honest, it's really nice to have that planning time. It's nice to have a little bit of a break and just have some time to dream and plan and, get all my seeds in order and get everything planned out and not be gardening 24/7. So, yeah. Best of luck on your maps. If you have any questions, message Guelph Tool Library or Backyard Caring, and I will get back to you. See you next week. Bye.